And as we have a quorum, we will call the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee meeting to order for 5 o'clock on Wednesday, September the 5th. I will just quickly mention that Chair Doherty expects to be here, but she knew that she'd be shortly after 5. So we advised her we'd be going ahead and starting the meeting, and she's aware of that. So again, welcome to everybody. I'll move, or I'll ask that we have adoption of the agenda. And moved by Councillor Boyd and seconded by Mayor Cooper. All in favor? Unanimous. And is there any business arising from the previous meeting? None indicated. And so we'll move into declarations of pecuniary interest. And there's none in that regard. And move forward to deputations. And today we have Sue and Penny and Don here in regards to speak to us in regards to the new banner program to commemorate the end of World War I. And I believe Penny is going to be handling the presentation. So welcome.
Oh, actually, I think I'm going to make everybody work. I can yell out. We've been before you and mentioned that we're looking at doing the program. We've now got the program in place. This is something new that we're starting this year, and hope eventually to have every pole with either a poppy on it or a veteran. So our idea is, if you look up the commemorative veteran banner, this is our design for our banner here in Collingwood. It's to complement our poppy banner, which is the black with the bright red poppies on it. So we put black headers and footers on it. And we decided to use the 2 flags, the Legion logo, and then a great picture. So I think what we're here to say is anyone can participate. If you have a family member, it can be an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, a cousin, someone you knew in the neighborhood that you wish to commemorate, you can become involved in this program. We need to put some value to it, so the BIA are looking to, we will absorb the cost of the production and installation of the banners. They will be up for a month from mid-October to just after Remembrance Day. And we hope to build our inventory over the years. But what we have done is created a very strategic and friendly alliance with the Legion, which is why Mr. Wilcox is here with us this evening. I went over to Don and I said, what do you think of this idea? And he said, great. And then it became a little idea that grew. And I will let Sue tell you about the benches when we come to that. So I'm one of those people. I started digging through photographs. I found my dad. That's the photograph I'm going to use. Now what I have to do, because that photograph was taken in 1944, is I need to take it out of the frame, take it down to Gabriel Photography, and have them make a high resolution image that they can put on a stick, and I can when I fill out my application for having Dad on a banner, that they'll be able to, because these are big banners, and we've chosen to have the image so people even you'll probably recognize them from the street. Their name will be there, and it's a real way of saying these people have lived in our community, have contributed. The BIA are also looking to, we recognize that there may be people who are no longer related to the World War I vets, such as Ernie Thomas, I think is a well-known World War I vet. The BIA is going to take on at least 10 of the World War I vets. We may find sponsorship for the banner, but what it does, when I say sponsorship, we're absorbing the cost, but we're asking for a donation to the Poppy Fund. This is our crossover with the Legion. So when we fill out the application, which Sue will tell you about, include a check for $100. And the $100 is made out to Branch 63 Legion Poppy Fund. So for every banner that goes up, $100 will go to the Poppy Fund at the Legion. We're not looking to make money from it, we're not looking to recover costs from it, but we're looking for a way to help the Legion make more money in the Poppy Fund, which is money that stays within the community. And Don may well share more of that information with you. But we also have an idea, and we've gone through Parks and Rec, we've gone through the museum, we've gone through, I think everybody else, for 2 commemorative benches as well. which will be installed at the cenotaph. So I think at this point I would turn it over to Sue, and I will turn it over to Dawn, and they can share the rest of the information with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you very much. And I'm very excited about this project because as a BIA manager, I really love the fact that we don't declare it Christmas until after Remembrance Day. And even though the poppy banners are there for a short time, it's a wow factor, and it really shows our support for our veterans and the men and women that have served and continue to serve. Very excited about this program. We'll have a media release issue tomorrow, and all the information about how to get involved will be included on our website. And we're hoping that we get support from the local media about get this word out. And we're very, very pleased that we're working with the Legion on this. The commemorative benches are something that we've been working on for quite some time. They're shown up here on the screen. We've ordered them, and they're coming in and will be installed by Remembrance Day, so they'll be there for the service. But they'll be there year-round, and it'll be a place for people to sit and reflect about the sacrifices that our armed personnel have made throughout the years. They're mirror images. They celebrate the poppies, which in Flanders Field, of course, was written during the First World War. So we're very, very pleased that we've been able to move forward with this project out of our capital expenditure fund, but it's a real legacy that we can the downtown can do to commemorate the 100-year anniversary. And now I'm going to turn it over to Don briefly.
And welcome, Don.
Thank you. I don't like to criticize Penny, but I don't think I said great. I think I said wow. What a great program, and the Legion is just overly excited about it. It's actually grown. We talked about, well, we get 10 banners, that's great. Now they're projecting 50. 50 banners plus the poppy banners on the side streets. The Legion couldn't ask for more. That's fantastic. And I have many, many photographs, head and shoulder shots of veterans from World War I up, including our own famous Ernie Thomas. So if people are looking for a photograph of their uncle or their aunt or whatever it happens to be, we can probably help out. If we can't, then we can go to DVA who will do it. The Poppy Fund is the money used in the Poppy Fund is regulated from Dominion. And if we want to help a veteran, one that is serving now or one that has served, or we want to help the veteran's family, we can do that with the okay from Dominion. The reason that is so that the money doesn't get spent frivolously on something that we wouldn't need. If you need a wheelchair, we'll buy you one. And then that's the way that Legion operates. Hans Mueller is our chairman of the Poppy Fund. And believe it or not, he's already started on the November campaign. So, but we're really thrilled. And I was so pleased when the BIA came to us and said, program. And when you see 50 banners plus the Poppy banners on our main street, the only downfall is we're not the first in Canada to do it. It's been done by other places. I've done a lot of research and found out that the closest one to us, I believe, is Bradford. And yeah, it's just a great program. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure that all hands will go up when the town decides what they're going to do about it, but I'm sure the support comes from this town, and I thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Penny, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think as Don said, we've set a target of 50, and our intention is to put the veteran banners down the main street, and then we'll use the poppies on the side street, so no matter where the parade goes, they will pass the banners. And it's also a really interesting look back, but I encourage it's anyone who has had any form of service. So Merchant Marine, Navy, Air Force, Army, I'm sounding old school, but Gulf War, currently serving. We're not eliminating it. It's anyone who has been or is in service that has a connection to our area. And as I say, it can be through a relative, it can be through a friend who wishes to recognize someone. And we're really proud of the program, and we only see it growing.
Have you mentioned the benches,
The which?
the benches?
Oh, yeah, the benches are actually a design, they're, everything about them, they're guaranteed. The color is guaranteed, and the Legion is considering putting some nice either poppy or bright red cushions on them for the day of the actual Remembrance Day services. And this is something that, it's just the BIA, and I have to give kudos to Brad Green, who was previously a chair of the BIA. This was a dream of his to do the banner program, and it didn't quite come about. So we've got our act together, and we've kind of rallied around the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. It's a nice way, and it's a nice way for the BIA to say thank you to the community. So I don't know if there are any questions, but I'm happy to take them.
Well, thank you very much for the excellent and very inspiring presentation. I would look to members of the public, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak. And I don't believe there is, so I would turn then to the committee and ask them if they'd like to add any thoughts or questions. So, Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Penny, you kind of clarified that a little bit. Like my grandfather was killed in the First World War, and I have one surviving shot of him in uniform, and it's a head and shoulder. Would I be able to?
You would be able to, you live here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, because we realize where people came from, and if people don't know, the other thing that's part of the application form is giving the information so it can go to the museum at the Legion, so they can supply further information for people.
Okay,
So if they're curious, they can find out more.
if I say yes, then I'll put one in. How can the picture be, can I go into enhance with, say, your picture?
Yes, yes. We've had discussions with Gabriel Photography. They can scan it in, and they can create a high-resolution image that can then be used digitally to put onto the banners themselves.
Count me in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's excellent. Mayor Cooper, anything?
I just think, I just want to comment through the acting chair that congratulations, and I'm really pleased that this is coming forward, and I provide, or my family provided information to Dawn and the Legion, and they're very interactive with the public. So I would say even if you are not looking at a banner, but you want to contribute some medallions or some medals in particular, that I think that I can speak.
Speak for Mr. Wilcox?
That saying that certainly accepting of it, and they do appreciate it. So
I can tell you, since we've started this program and I've been talking to people about it, I've kind of been selling them on the street, so to speak, stopping people like, oh, your dad was in the Air Force, wasn't he? And you start to count me in, and I mean, you just walk a little taller, and it's a real sense of community, and community of people who stood up and put their hand up and went to war for our country and our queen, king and queen at different points.
So if I can just to finish off, I mean, it's certainly that we can all be proud of, and I know that Gordon has done a lot in recognizing the 100th anniversary and to the end of the First World War, and very pleased that there's a partnership here, because then things get done in positive ways. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you both.
Councillor Doherty, is there anything you'd like to add, or?
No, only that it is an excellent initiative. I know the BIA have been working on it for some time. We talked about this months ago, so it's really nice to see it come to fruition.
One thing I didn't mention, we can also, if someone doesn't have a relative or a person they wish to recognize, they can contact the BIA, and we may be able to match them with someone who might need help doing the banner program. So we're willing to work with everybody.
Okay, if that's the comments from, I echo the committee's congratulations. What an excellent initiative, and it's all about remembrance, and of course that is the utmost concern, is that we remember the efforts and the reasons why, and hope not to repeat, and those types of things, and And from your comment about getting your act together, it's well above that. And the timing of it with the World War 100th anniversary. Of course, this past Monday was Merchant Navy Veterans Day, and you're inclusive of that, and it's all about remembering all those efforts of those individuals and what they achieved in those unfortunate times. With the BIA initiating this, and as Don was saying, you've researched, and there are some other ones, and there's like it certainly is a community project, and I think the residents are just going to be overjoyed with it. But do you intend on through your network to other municipalities to bring it to their attention, or?
I think I know Brad initially picked it up from different news releases, so I think as soon as we get our banners up and we promote and we show our benches once they're installed, I'm sure we're gonna be contacted not only by other BIAs, but by other communities.
Well, once again, on behalf of the committee, congratulations and thank you from the community for this effort. It's tremendous, and I'm thinking right now you're not looking anything directly from council. The minutes will be on the next meeting, and the mayor, I'm sure, will speak to it. So,
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And as we note to people when they've presented, they don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if they don't want to, and we won't be offended. But that's great. And one other comment that I meant to make when you're standing there was congratulations to BIA for, I think, an excellent summer event schedule. And I attended a lot of them, and they were well organized and enjoyable. And I know that some of them were in conjunction. We had the chance to thank staff at the last council meeting for their efforts as well. And BIA, we really appreciate the
Local live lunch in our markets.
Yeah.
Kudos to our staff under Sue's direction, our summer students and our full-time, we call them event staff now rather than maintenance people. We got a lot of setup and takedown and a lot of tents.
And sometimes the weather didn't cooperate.
But that's Mother Nature and that's summer. Thank
Well, again, congratulations. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move from that item on to reports from minutes and other committees and boards. And the first item is the Accessibility Committee minutes. Do we read all? Yeah. Okay. So it would be the Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes of July 25th, 2018. The Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes, July 12th and August the 9th, 2018. And the Trails Advisory Committee minutes, July 12th, 2018. And I would first look to the public for any comments on the minutes, and I don't see any. So I will turn to the committee members to see if there's any specific, I guess we'll start off with the accessibility meeting. Mayor Cooper?
I would move.
Okay, and that's, we have that moved, I'm sorry, we should move that and have a seconder and have it on the floor, Councillor Doherty. And then I'd look to see if there was any particular comments before we vote on it. Mayor Cooper?
Yes, thank you. Under Accessibility Advisory, I've seen kudos, seen the Accessibility Committee and staff at the Farmers Market. So thank you very much for that, for being accessible. And as well, kicking off today the celebration of the Indigenous Gathering Circle and welcoming the workers who have been focused in working on Sunset Point and will be assisting with the Awen Center Gathering Circle that through Dean. Thank you very much, and they actually said this morning, thank you to you and your team. So I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty?
Thank you very much, Chair Fryer. And this question, I may have to direct this to Director Culver. And it's just in regard to the Accessibility Advisory Committee cycling plan. And there's a reference to some input that they made to the plan, but there's no detail as to what those recommendations were. And I was just wondering what discussions there were.
So through you, Chair, the cycling plan consultant met with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and took comments. I wasn't actually at that meeting, and the plan is in the final stages of being developed, so it'll be incorporated in the plan. So I actually don't have an answer about it specifically, but when the plan is put before council for endorsement, you'll see that as part of the overall plan. But Clerk Almost may have a comment as well. I believe she was there.
Go ahead.
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Doherty, the committee was actually quite pleased with the progress that was happening and the ideas that were being put forward. And really the only significant suggestion that they wanted them to consider was three-wheel bicycles.
Good.
The one comment I would make is I noted in the accessibility committee meeting under correspondence the decision of the committee in regards to the joint accessibility advisory committee, and certainly support the committee's decision at this time that it needs to concentrate on Collingwood. I would think it would be a difficult committee to have as a joint committee as well, because things are so specific to the municipalities.
That's correct. Through the chair to the committee, the committee was approached by other Simcoe County municipalities to initiate interest in a joint committee, but the responsibility for an accessibility advisory group is for providing advice and expertise into specific site plans, as well as programs and services of that specific municipality. So they felt it was quite difficult, and since we're a large settlement area, that we have a lot of items going on right now, so.
We certainly support the idea whenever possible for joint, but I thought the same thing. And just a comment on the BIA, I noted that there was reference about approaching the town in regards to more bike racks, I believe, for the downtown core. And I was going to just direct a quick question to Director Culver as well. I knew the cycling plan was being done, and I've had comments before in regards to bike racks at the Central Park area. Perhaps there could be some more. So will the cycling plan include that type of information as well?
Yeah, actually the cycling plan does have bike facilities as a part of the plan, as well as bike routing.
So it'll be addressed in the plan itself. Excellent. No other comment, or Mayor Cooper?
Yes, regarding the partnership and accessibility of municipalities and the county of Simcoe, I know that there are a couple, one being Springwater Township. They have a joint meeting with accessibility with the county of Simcoe as well. I believe Tay Township, if I'm not mistaken, but probably smaller municipalities, and they're disappointingly wasn't an interest in the community to have their own accessibility committee, so they joined in with the county of Simcoe, and I can see where we are an urban node, so a little different from the townships.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we do have a motion on the floor, moved by Mayor Cooper and seconded by Councillor Doherty. All those in favor? None opposed. We'll move on to staff reports, and the first staff report has to do with the Joint Compliance Audit Committee. It's staff report C 2018-17. It's recommending that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee support and refer the following staff report to the next regular meeting of Council. That Council receive staff report C 2018-17 regarding the Joint Audit Compliance Committee requirements of the Municipal Elections Act, and enact and pass the necessary bylaws to establish the committee, including the terms of reference, as well as authorize the appointments to committee effective for the 2018 to 2022 council term. And I would turn to Clerk Almost to advise us on this report.
Through the chair to the committee, This report on the Joint Compliance Audit Committee is a requirement. It was based on the direction provided by Council, I believe last May, to pursue the option that the county had put forward to want to help all of our Simcoe County member municipalities in the compliance audit function. It's significantly changed with the Municipal Election Act changes that came into place the end of last year. And this is the same audit compliance committee that's been a requirement for the last 2 elections. However, this election, there's a lot more financial candidate campaign information that needs to be monitored and reviewed, and the roles of the committee have expanded to also be able to involve and incorporate an auditor if they need an auditor to review compliance audit requests. So again, the purpose of a committee is to investigate complaints made by an elector who is entitled to vote in that election and believes on reasonable grounds that a candidate has contravened the provision of the Municipal Elections Act relating to election campaign finances. So the Simcoe County Municipality Clerks have got together under the County Clerk's John Daly's direction. He is going to be the lead clerk in the compliant audit process, as it needs to be led by a clerk of a municipality. And so he's offered to provide that function to, again, make sure that all the clerks remain independent in the process. The committee has undertaken the recruitment process, so we've reviewed applications, we've had interviews with the candidates that we'll be recommending, and on Monday night the names will be put forward for council's consideration. So that's the basis of the report.
Okay. That's great, and I would turn to members of the community that are in attendance that would like to speak to this item. There being none, I would ask then that I look to have the motion put onto the table. Moved by Councillor Lloyd and seconded by Councillor Doherty, and I would ask the committee members if they had any questions or comments. Councillor Doherty.
I'll just make the comment that it makes so much sense that the county should be involved and this should be consolidated, and once again the county is providing great service for its member municipalities. So, good idea.
And I'll just add a comment, and this is the case of where the county will try to have a joint situation, but as you mentioned, there is quite a few changes, and it's unbeknownst really as to how that will impact things going forward, and they'll address that as that goes. So that's great. I would then call the motion to vote. All those in favor? And none opposed. So we move on to report PRC 2018-12, Accessible Change Room, recommending that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee support and refer the following staff report to the next regular meeting of Council. The staff report PRC 2018-12 be received for information. And I would turn to Director Culper to add his comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And actually I have to begin with a bit of an apology because this is, there must have been a technical error that has an earlier version of the report. So by the time the report goes to Council, we'll have the corrected version. The corrected version actually identifies that funding for this change comes from the Accessibility Advisory Committee, as well as some supplemental funding from the PRC budget, the Parks budget. And the other, I think, correction is that there were 2 stories to appendices B and C that were not included, which should have been included. And the appendices, the stories that were submitted were voluntarily from Darcy, Mother Mary, who tells the story of Darcy's condition and why this room in the pool and access to the pool is so necessary. And Maria, who is a somewhat recent paraplegic who relies on the pool for relief as well as fitness. So we'll make sure all of that is captured and corrected by the time this report goes to Council. So my apologies for the error.
thank you for that, that update. Any comments? That certainly the report speaks for itself, so, and I think we're all aware of the situation. And I then would turn to the committee members to ask if they have any comments in regards to questions. Okay, so I just like to comment that I really commend PRC for and the advisory committee as well, accessibility advisory committee, because this is something that you tried to get through a funding program but recognized that there was a need for it, and the individuals involved are willing to share their stories. They're giving input. From the way the report reads, they're the ones who kind of suggested the family change room as an alternative. And I just think it really just shows that you've got strong support from the community moving forward on this about the inclusivity of people. So,
sorry, if I may just comment as well, just also to make note, Cheryl Bedard, who's our acting manager of community recreation, she was kind of the spearhead for this, and Mal Milanovic, all the diagrams and everything and the technical aspects of it, he's taken it on. So it's really been a very big team project. The next thing I'd like to mention is that aside from Mary and Darcy's story, we've actually had more people come forward saying that if the facility was more accessible, they would be able to use it for therapeutic reasons. So it's not just 2 individuals in our community, it's actually going to be a number of individuals who haven't been able to be served. And the last thing that I would like to say is that the Centennial Aquatic Center actually meets all of the AODA requirements currently. It's not deficient in any way. What this project does, it'll actually add accommodations for members of our community with extended needs, and that's what a community should be doing for its members. So yeah.
That was my other comment. I'm very pleased and impressed with the committee's work about looking at things beyond the AODA and proactively looking for ways that we can further the accessibility situations for our residents. So again, congratulations. So we have that motion then on the table, and I will ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Awesome.
I'm sorry, I thought I had you moving it and Councillor Doherty seconding it. I said that earlier. I thought I did. Okay, so we have Councillor Lloyd moving and Councillor Doherty seconding, and all those in favor? No opposed. The next item is a PRC 2018-14, temporary moratorium on artifact collecting. Recommending that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee support and refer the following staff report to the next regular meeting of Council. That staff report PRC 2018-14 be received for information. I'll ask for somebody to move, or actually I will turn to staff first to have comments.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the correct report this time, and the basis behind it is essentially that with 60,000 artifacts currently residing in the museum, cataloging, logging, conserving is simply an overwhelming job. So staff need time to catch up and continue to make records current. So the 6-month moratorium on collecting means that essentially we're saying we won't be accepting new artifacts until they basically caught up some. Artifacts are constantly coming to the museum, so the moratorium essentially helps us to manage our activity a little bit better. It doesn't mean that we won't accept these things 6 months from now, it simply means that we just won't accept them right now.
Okay. I turn to members of the public in attendance to ask if anybody would like to speak to this item. There being none, I would turn to the committee and ask for somebody to move the motion onto the table.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Lloyd, and I would then turn to the committee members and ask if there's any comments on the matter. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Chair. It certainly is understandable that this might have to happen. So I have no concern about supporting this particular staff recommendation. One thing though, I've had people say to me from time to time that it doesn't seem as though our museum has a lot of artifacts, and yet we know that we have thousands of pieces and that we tend to rotate those pieces on display. And I'm wondering if it might be possible, and I'll put this forward to the committee and perhaps to staff as well, at some point when we don't have a heavy agenda, that we could have a deputation from the museum and could explain better how we handle our artifacts and how we display them.
Through you, Chair, that's absolutely possible and would be very welcome. Yeah, we'd love to have Susan and Melissa come and explain the process of developing exhibits and what the rotation process is and why, why it takes a while to create exhibits as well.
Thank you.
Mayor Cooper?
Yes, I just also wanted to further respond to Councillor Doherty. This coming Saturday is the second annual Shipyard Social, and there should be artifacts out for these people that contact you saying that there's nothing happening at the museum or no artifacts on display or limited. So if you would encourage those people that you speak to come and learn more on Saturday, and I know that those artifacts and displays will be there for at least a month, if I'm not mistaken, and also speak to some of the former shipyard workers, and there'll be some artifactual information, if that's such a word. There would be information provided to the public from those former shipyard workers as well, explaining the displays. So I would encourage you and others to visit the museum Saturday.
Yes, and that's excellent. We don't usually do an awful lot of community announcement stuff, and that one was something that I noticed when I was looking at the calendar that it was coming up. My thought dovetailed with Councillor Doherty's was when we have the moratorium, how we would advise the public, and I envisioned the same thing, advising them of just what you talked about. The number of artifacts you do have, the processes that are undertaken, and those types of things. So they're well aware of the fact that it's just catching up because we do have so much to inventory.
Yeah, through your chair, it's a huge process. I think largely some of the misunderstanding comes from a feeling that we receive artifacts and put them on a shelf and forget about them, but there's a lot of conservation involved. There's provenance research. It's a very professional approach. It's not a hobby. It is actually a professionally run museum, and I would really be pleased for Susan and Melissa to come and describe to this committee or council what their professional approach looks like.
That's great, and as Mayor Cooper said, with the shipyard coming up on Saturday, that's an opportunity for the public to understand more about the museum and the process. So that's great. So I will ask then for a vote on the motion. All those in favor? And no opposed. Moving on to PRC 2018-15. Recommendation for acknowledgement of traditional lands. Recommending that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee support and refer the following staff report to the next regular meeting of Council. That Council formally adopt the recommended wording for an acknowledgement of traditional lands as identified in this report. And that Council go further in their intention by committing each incoming Council following an election to an orientation on the Indigenous presence in our community, the traditions and the history of the First People, and the current challenges facing First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in Canadian communities. And I would turn to Director Culver for his comments on this report.
Thank you, Chair. So Council directed us to pursue this, and we had to do some research because acknowledgements of traditional lands are not something to be taken lightly, and with 15,000 plus years of history. There's often confusion about, or I guess dissent about what lands are being acknowledged and by whom and on behalf of whom. So the statement that was offered to us by the resource Wawasegaming basically provides an acknowledgement at a higher level so that we don't have to get too deep into who, as much as we understand that generally we know that there were people that preceded us on these lands. So that was something that took a little bit of time to get to. The other part of the recommendation actually comes from the fact that there was an interest in not having acknowledgement of traditional lands be taken for granted at some point in the future. After repetition, sometimes that can occur. So the recommendation was to provide an education at the beginning of every council term that reminds councillors why the acknowledgement is important and what the what truth and reconciliation could mean to Collingwood.
Thank you for that input. I would turn to members of the public if there's any comments in regards to this report. There being none, I would turn to committee and ask for a mover and seconder to put the item on to discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Mayor Cooper. And I would then turn to the committee members for any comments or questions. Councillor Doherty.
I'm very happy to see this come to committee and then to council. This is as a result of the Truth and Reconciliation federal initiative. A number of communities around our country are beginning to embark on these acknowledgements and learning and understanding who was here first, whose lands we are now gathered on, and to learn a little bit about those cultures. One thing, when we were at the original dedication of the Onwen land, it became very clear to me that the indigenous peoples of this area and probably of the whole country were really our first conservationists. And it's as though we're going full circle. And it's a very compelling story. Very pleased to support this.
Thank you. Mayor Cooper, any? Okay. What I was going to commend everyone on and the efforts that have been put forward is I was aware that we were working on developing a statement, and I think the statement is fantastic. The orientation suggestion is an excellent one. I know in talking to Lisa Ferrano at the festival afterwards, after the presentation by the panel, she talked about education and discussion being so important on a go-forward basis. So I look at this as education. We're familiar with requirements of Council 2 on the water side under the Safe Drinking Water Act to actually have orientation. It's imposed by regulation. What that doesn't may not happen in this particular case, but we're looking at it as something that we want to do to ensure that it's recognized that this is an ongoing conversation and an education program that we're well behind. So congratulations to everybody on the development of this. So with that all being said, then I would ask for a vote on the matter. All those in favor? And no opposed as well. Another PRC item, 2018-16, the OPHA Community Development Project, so the Ontario Public Health Association, recommending that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee can support and refer the following staff report to the next regular meeting of Council. That Council support participation in the Ontario Public Health Association Community Development Project, Keeping Kids Healthy through collective impact. And that Council authorize the Mayor and staff to advise the Ontario Public Health Association of our support. Director Culver, did you have anything you wanted to add to the?
Probably, through you, Chair, just really quickly for clarification, essentially what this is doing is forming a network, a province-wide network to carry on some of the excellent progress that has been undertaken by the Healthy Kids initiatives. As everybody is well aware and as will be mentioned through the PRC master plan, it's our intention to recommend the continuation of the Healthy Kids initiative in another form that has broader community reach, but this network will actually provide an additional resource to that interest and help Collingwood to continue to grow its healthy living and community network supporting that.
Thank you, and I will turn to members of the public if there's any comments on the report. None being, I would turn to the committee then to ask for a mover and seconder. Councillor Lloyd moves, Councillor Dory seconds, and ask the committee members if they have any comments in regards to the presentation report. Being none, I then would call it for vote. All those in favor? None opposed. From that, we move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is department updates and discussions. And I will turn to the clerk, I guess, to see what direction, if there is anyone is going first or such. Okay. Are there any of the directors that wanted to update us on anything? Martin?
Thank you. I just want to provide an update to the committee on a recent post that we just did on Experience Collingwood celebrating Agunora's recent award. They were highlighted in the Globe and Mail in an article earlier this week as one of the great innovators, so proud to have them in our town. So I want to just make sure everyone's aware of that. Certainly if you see anyone from Agunora, feel free to congratulate them.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Just a brief update, June 25th, we started the quality care program with Simcoe County Paramedics. It's been a great program for the fire service. We get great support from the county and Dr. Feldman, who runs the program for Base Hospital Sunnybrook. So far, we've responded to 62 overdose incidents that our training has helped us respond to. Call volume for this year, some busy summer, and we're up 15% to last year. So when I first came, our average response calls were 500 a year, and we're at 580 right now. So and it's not because of the medical calls, it's just we're busy, the town's busy. But getting back to quality care program, we get reviews on every call we go to, and we're 100% compliant with the program. So we're doing really well with it, and I think it's a good program for the town.
Any questions of the chief? Congratulations to staff. That, as you say, they're busier, and then addition has taken on this role from a medical assistant standpoint, and give our regards to your staff for doing an excellent job in that regard. I would then turn to item 9, which is any other public delegations that anybody is wishing to make. Don't have any. Then I would turn to any other business and ask Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. I just want to thank you very much, Councillor Fryer, for taking the chair on such short notice. I was out of town in meetings and they didn't wrap up quite as quickly as I thought they would, so thank you.
That's not a problem, and in that regard. Nothing from this side. The one item I was going to ask about is I was reviewing some of the information and didn't take a quick look at the calendar. September 14th to 16th was targeted as the Airstream event in town. Is that still planned? I hadn't heard anything more about it. I just turned to Director Culver.
Thank you, Chair. It's a third-party event, and as far as I know, it's still still on.
Something I was gonna ask about, because if it will, I'm assuming it'll involve some closure of the Ontario Street.
Sorry, through you, Chair, actually, no, there's no road closures associated. They're-
Excellent,
They're
okay.
occupying parking only, but not closing any roads.
Excellent, excellent. Just for information purposes, when the Classic Cars was held, a person pointed out to me that, and this has to do with the ongoing concern about garbage on the main street and being put out at an earlier time than pickup. And I guess some of the businesses aren't open for the weekend, so they actually bring their garbage to the curb, and then you're holding an event downtown. So that's just, as I say, just information that was shared with me during that particular event, and it wasn't, I'm sure it's happened in other cases too. And then the other item I was gonna, that was brought to my attention was an inquiry about recycling at events. That there are usually the garbage, and is recycling just a very difficult thing to include in regards to the events?
I'd like to say thank you for that question, but I really don't want to thank you for that question. It is a very difficult one. So if the Director of Public Works was here, we'd probably be able to tag team better on this answer, and it's not the best answer in the world, but the problem is that recycling is no longer recycling once it becomes contaminated in any way. So if we provide a recycling container, people responsibly place their recycling in that container, but someone inadvertently or deliberately or for any reason drops in something that's not recyclable. It could be food, it could be any kind of contamination whatsoever. That entire vessel won't be collected for recycling, so it goes to landfill. So the challenge we have is putting out receptacles. We don't have the capacity or resources to sort after they've been contaminated. To remove whatever the contamination is and resort. We just don't have that manpower to do that very, very large job. And unfortunately, we're in the situation of putting out receptacles and pretending that we do recycling, or not putting out recycling containers, and unfortunately, just recognizing that the challenge is too large for us to support a solution for right this moment.
I think that's an excellent explanation, and it just, as you note, there's just too many other factors that come into play. And that, so I appreciate the update on that. Any other items from the committee?
So Acting Chair, just to let you know that I received later this afternoon some correspondence regarding the Airstream trailers. So I have not had an opportunity to have a thorough read, but it came in mail late this afternoon.
And there will be an opportunity to speak at the council meeting, advise about this, but it was just a case of, I was wondering about the closures, so. No other business then, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Councilor Gordy, all those in favor?